During the First World War, many new tactics and weapons were utilized or tested for the first time. But what could be considered the most cruel of them all? Could it be the mortars landing on the trenches? Or the flamethrowers that the stormtroopers used? Or perhaps gas? Something so vile that was banned with the 1907 Hague Convention. Yet when the war started, both the Axis and the Allies ignored the treaty. And this led to one of the most gruesome battles mankind has ever witnessed. On the 6th of August 1915, on the now polished town of Osowiec happened the renowned attack of the Dead Men, when the German army unleashed an enormous quantity of toxic gases that the few Russian troops that were defending the fortress of Osowiec, who weren't even properly equipped with gas masks, came through the gas fog with a zombie-like appearance, coughing and spitting blood in parts of their lungs, thus scaring out the German soldiers. But who is responsible for this horrendous weapon of war, and the many other attacks that occurred among the many other fronts during the Great War? Well, in theory there isn't just one person responsible for the research on the toxic gases to be used during the war, because not only the Germans, but the British and French were doing so too. But the one who actually found the winning formula is none other than the Prussian chemist Fritz Haber. But for this we need to go back in time a few years, more precisely around the 20th century mark, when Haber was just a professor at the University of Karlsruhe. He worked alongside another brilliant mind of the 20th century, that being Karl Bosch, to create what we know in the present as the Haber-Bosch process. What this process involves is the synthesis of ammonia. Alongside the Industrial Revolution, there came a bigger need for food, and such the fields of vegetables or grains became more exploited as time went on. When the soil hosts too many generations of crops, the nutrients from it become scarcer, and thus newer generations will be smaller than the previous. So what did the people do at that time? Firstly, they found out that the guano of the birds is rich in ammonia, and one country that was full of this resource was Peru, who owns a couple of small islands by the shore that are the hosts of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of seabirds to mate every year, making it the #1 exporting power of bird guano in the world at that time. But what happens when the global demand of the guano is so big that Peru cannot provide anymore? They turned to scientists, and where many failed, Fritz Haber was there to succeed, and with the help of Karl Bosch, they managed to obtain the first small amounts of ammonia that would be then industrialized for the bigger quantities needed for fertilizers, and thus being responsible for the food that would grow ever since until the present days. So, having all these facts presented, what led to his downfall? One key element in Haber's life was his wife, fellow chemist Clara Immerwahr, one of the few women in the domain, and the first woman to have a PhD, under the wing of Richard Abegg. She was a very kind and an advocate for women's rights, and an outright pacifist. So what happened when the Great War struck the world, and her pacifist view came into conflict with the patriotic nature of Fritz Haber, and his wish to help the German army with everything he could? Well, nothing good, cause in May of 1915, Clara was found dead in the front of the Haber household by their son. This left Fritz devastated, but he would still continue to pursue in finding the ultimate weapon of the First World War, the chlorine gas. He went on the battlefield of Ypres in person to put the weapon to the test, where it managed to kill thousands over thousands. After his success he was promoted to the rank of captain in the army, and head of the chemistry department in the Ministry of War. Once the war came to an end, with the 1918 came his Nobel Prize win for the synthesis of ammonia, which was met with a lot of controversy from the other scientists thanks to his contributions to the war. But all in all, it's hard to put a price on his actions. You can't either throw rocks at him nor praise his name, because on one hand he brought a lot of harm, although indirectly, to the people during the war. On the other hand, he helped improving the agriculture worldwide with his accomplishment, thus saving more than half the population that our world currently has.